There is a kind of beauty that only time can bring. It's not found in wrinkle-free skin or youthful speed, but in eyes that have truly seen and a heart that has deeply let go. We live in a world that worships youth, glowing skin, fast energy, the next new thing. But beneath that surface obsession is a deeper truth. Aging isn't a curse. It's a sacred unfolding. And if we approach it the way the Buddha taught, with presence, mindfulness, and compassion, we find that growing older becomes not a process of decay, but of revelation. You see, in Buddhism, aging is not something to be feared. It is, in fact, one of the four heavenly messengers: old age, sickness, death, and the monk. These messengers were what opened Prince Siddhartha's eyes to the reality of life. They didn't depress him, they awakened him. So maybe we've misunderstood aging all along. What if your silver hair is not a mark of decline, but a crown of wisdom? What if your slower pace isn't weakness, but an invitation to move through life more mindfully, more deliberately, like a walking meditation? Buddhism teaches that every stage of life offers its own kind of liberation. Childhood holds curiosity, youth brings energy, but aging offers clarity. When the noise of ambition quiets, when the chase of external validation fades, we finally get to meet ourselves. Not the self shaped by roles or reputation, but the deeper self, the one who can sit still, who can breathe through pain, who can love without needing anything in return. Just as a lotus rises from the mud, the mind, seasoned by years, rises from illusion. Aging with grace doesn't mean pretending it's easy. There are aches, there are losses, the face in the mirror changes. Friends leave this world. But Buddhism doesn't ask us to deny that pain. It asks us to look at it clearly and to let it teach us. This is where Zen wisdom comes in like a soft hand on your shoulder. In Zen, we learn that impermanence is not an enemy. It's a doorway to freedom. Everything is always changing. The seasons, the body, the people around us. And while clinging creates suffering, letting go creates peace. That's the art of aging gracefully, the art of letting go beautifully. Letting go of the need to control everything. Letting go of regret. Letting go of who you thought you had to be. And in that gentle release, something stunning happens. You return to yourself. You begin to savor moments more deeply. You notice the way sunlight touches a wall. You listen more intently to the laughter of grandchildren. You speak less, and when you do speak, it's with care. That's not decline. That's ripening. Think of a tree in spring. Youthful, fresh, bursting with color. But what's more powerful, the spring blossom or the ancient oak that has weathered 100 storms? Aging reveals your roots, your resilience, your calm. And Buddhism reminds us that your value doesn't decrease with age, it deepens. But let's be honest, society doesn't always see it that way. The elderly are often pushed aside, treated as invisible. In a world that moves fast, they're seen as too slow. But in Buddhist tradition, elders are the living scriptures. They are the Dharma embodied. Their lives are walking teachings. And if you are in the later chapters of your life, this message is especially for you. You are not less. You are becoming more. This is your time, your sacred time to focus inward, to rediscover stillness, to practice forgiveness, to find joy not in doing, but simply in being. Because while the body may soften, the spirit sharpens. And the truth is, some of the greatest spiritual masters only reached awakening after the age of 60. Aging is not the end. It is the threshold to a deeper beginning. As the Buddha once said, better than 100 years lived in ignorance without contemplation is one single day lived in wisdom and meditation. So what would it look like to live this next chapter of your life in full wisdom? What would it feel like to rise each morning, not burdened by age, but awakened by it? In the chapters to come, We will explore this path not as an escape from aging, but as a way to embrace it fully, beautifully, and mindfully. From daily habits that foster joy to silent strengths that command respect. From quiet moves that reshape how others treat you, to the subtle signs the soul prepares for departure. Each lesson is a lantern, lit by Buddhist insight, illuminating your journey toward peace. And now, with gentle breath and open heart, we take the first true step on that path. Let us begin with a simple truth. A still body invites a still death, but a body in gentle, intentional motion awakens the mind, sharpens the senses, and breathes life into the soul. As we age, society subtly tells us to sit down, rest more, slow down. But Buddhism teaches the opposite. A body in motion stays in the stream of life. The Buddha himself walked from village to village into his 80s, not in haste, but in mindfulness. Each step was a meditation, each breath a renewal. So why does daily movement matter, especially in your 60s, 70s, or even 90s? Because the body and the mind are not two. In Zen, we often say, when the body is still, the mind should still be awake. But when the body is awake, the mind should not remain sleepy. Movement stirs awareness. It rebalances the kai, the vital energy that connects us with the present moment. Take, for example, the simple act of walking. It's not about steps or speed. It's about rhythm. A 10-minute mindful walk around your garden or corridor with attention to your breath and feet is more powerful than an hour of treadmill running in front of a TV. Why? Because it unites awareness and physicality, what Zen calls no-gap living. In the video, the speaker reflects on how even the gentlest movement, standing up, reaching out, stretching, or walking slowly, has measurable impact on longevity, brain function, and emotional resilience. This is backed by science. Physical movement stimulates blood flow, reduces inflammation, and sharpens cognitive function. But in Buddhist terms, there's more. Movement dissolves stagnation not just in the body, but in karma. Every time you rise and walk with intention, you are breaking through the karma of apathy and hopelessness. You are declaring, I choose life. Here's a practice inspired by both Zen and modern neuroscience. The 5-minute morning movement ritual. Stand at your window. Let the morning light hit your face. Bow to the day. Raise your arms slowly with your breath. Inhale up, exhale down. Feel the air. Twist your spine gently left and right. Like wringing out a towel, release tension. Walk slowly for 5 minutes. No phone, just steps and breath. Feel your feet touch the earth. End with palms at heart center. Whisper, I am alive, thank you. This is not exercise. This is reverence in motion. In Zen monasteries, the monks sweep the floors every morning, not because it's dirty, but to sweep the dust from the mind. You, too, can sweep your inner dust by moving your body with reverence. Washing dishes, folding clothes, watering plants, all of these can be moving meditations. As the speaker says, when you stop moving, your mind becomes the home of old ghosts, regret, fear, stagnation. But when you move, you flush them out. Motion is not about fitness, it's about spiritual circulation. So don't wait for motivation, don't wait for energy. Move first and the energy will follow. You don't have to run. You just have to rise. And remember, as Zen Master Dogen taught, the body is the Dharma gate. To neglect it is to close the door to realization. In your later years, movement is not just maintenance, it is awakening. Let your every motion become a prayer. Let your walk be your meditation. Let your breath be your mantra. And in that sacred movement you will discover, you are not getting older, you are getting freer. There's a quiet ritual that happens each morning in a Zen monastery. A wooden bell echoes through the stillness. Monks in robes silently gather in the dining hall. No one speaks. No music plays. There are no phones, no distractions. Just a simple bowl of rice, a few vegetables, and deep gratitude for every grain. No diet books, no calorie counting, no chasing flavor, just nourishment with mindfulness. Why does this ancient simplicity feel so revolutionary today? Because in our modern lives, food has become more than fuel. It's entertainment, escape, habit, even addiction. We chase taste, volume, novelty. But in doing so, we often forget the most basic truth. Food isn't just what we eat, it's how we live. In Buddhist monastic life, eating is never rushed. A monk doesn't eat with eyes glued to a screen or while rushing to a meeting. They eat with presence, with awareness of where the food came from, who grew it, and the interconnection of all life involved in each bite. There is no shame around food, no moral judgment, no guilt, only awareness. Eat when hungry. Stop when full. And while eating, just eat. That sounds so simple. And yet for many of us, that's a lost art. We overeat when bored. We skip meals when stressed. We diet until we're dizzy, then binge until we're bloated. Then repeat. And underneath it all is a deeper hunger. A hunger for peace, balance, and clarity. But here's what's beautiful. You don't have to move to a monastery to eat like a monk. You can begin with one quiet meal. Turn off all distractions. Sit down, breathe. Look at your food as if you've never seen it before. Eat slowly, taste everything. Chew each bite fully. Let that be enough. And over time, something magical happens. Your body begins to trust you again. Cravings lessen. Guilt fades, and you start to feel nourished, not just filled. You may find yourself drawn to simpler foods, foods that don't scream for attention but instead whisper of balance. Steamed vegetables, fresh fruits, warm broths, brown rice. These are not flashy meals, but they carry a kind of quiet power, like the wisdom of a sage who speaks only when needed. Simplicity is not deprivation. Simplicity is liberation. The Buddha himself taught the middle way, not indulgence, not denial, but balance. When he renounced extreme fasting, he accepted a bowl of rice from a village girl, an act that restored his strength and allowed him to awaken beneath the Bodhi tree. That moment is a lesson for all of us. Sometimes, peace begins not in grand revelations, but in one humble meal, shared with mindfulness and grace. In fact, many Zen masters believe that how you eat is a reflection of how you live. Do you eat too quickly? Perhaps you're rushing through life. Do you eat distracted? Maybe you're avoiding being present. Do you constantly seek sugar, salt, stimulation? You might be avoiding silence. By learning to eat with simplicity, we begin to reprogram our minds to embrace life as it is, without needing it to be more, faster, or louder. It's not about strict rules. It's about sacred rhythm. Many monks follow the 80% rule. Eat until you are 80% full. That last 20%, it's where wisdom lives. It's the space that reminds you that fullness doesn't equal fulfillment. There's also deep gratitude in every bite. Before meals, monks chant a verse of thanks, not to a deity but to the interconnected web of life, the sun, rain, soil, farmers, cooks, even insects. Every element is honored. What would happen if we brought that kind of reverence to our table? What if dinner wasn't just a task, but a ritual? What if your morning tea wasn't just caffeine, but a meditation? What if cooking wasn't a burden, but an offering? When you shift how you eat, you shift how you live. You return to the present moment. You become less reactive, more aware. You feel your body instead of fighting it. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to unlearn the lie that joy only comes from more. Instead, you discover a deeper joy, the kind that arises from enough. That's the secret of monks. They aren't chasing gourmet meals or exotic flavors. And yet, many of them smile more in one morning than some of us do in a week. Because their meals nourish not just the body but the soul. And maybe that's the path we're being invited to walk, not toward a perfect diet, but toward a peaceful one. One that says, I have enough. I am enough. This moment is enough. The truth is, when your body is nourished in simplicity, your mind finds its natural clarity. And that clarity creates space to listen, to feel, to connect. Which leads us to the next sacred practice, one often overlooked in modern life but held in deep regard in Buddhist tradition: the art of intentional listening. Because once your body is quieted and your mind is clear, the world begins to speak in whispers, and those whispers carry wisdom far beyond words. Let's listen. Have you ever wondered why monks look so radiant, even though they live without luxury? It's not just meditation or minimalism. It's their relationship with rest. They don't collapse into bed out of exhaustion. They enter sleep the same way they enter meditation, with intention, presence, and reverence. Most of us treat sleep like a forgotten errand. We check it off the list after pushing ourselves to the limit. But in the monastic way of life, and in Buddhist tradition, sleep is not a pit stop on the way to productivity. It is a sacred transition, a moment where the body surrenders and the mind prepares to be cleansed, reset, and renewed. And that shift in perspective changes everything. Because when you treat rest as a spiritual ritual, not a biological chore, you don't just sleep better, you live better. Monks begin winding down their day hours before sleep. No glowing screens, no loud entertainment, no last-minute emails. Instead, they retreat into stillness, into prayer, into reflection. And what's fascinating is this: their day ends the same way it began, in mindfulness. That quiet closing of the day is not laziness. It is a deliberate choice to honor impermanence, the ending of a day as a symbol of the ending of life. And that awareness brings gratitude. Gratitude brings peace. And peace brings deep, undisturbed sleep. You don't need to live in a monastery to follow this path. You just need to reclaim your evenings from chaos. Start small. Dim the lights an hour before bed. Play gentle, grounding music or silence. Light a candle. Journal about one thing you're letting go of today. Make sleep your offering, not your escape, and watch what happens. Your nervous system starts to soften. Your breath becomes more steady. You begin to feel safe again, not from the outside world, but safe within yourself. In this softness, the body heals. In this stillness, the mind releases. And in this darkness, a light is restored. You wake up not just rested, but reconnected to your body, to your breath, to something eternal. Modern life glorifies the grind. It says rest when you're dead. But Buddhist wisdom says something deeper. If you don't learn how to rest while you're alive, you'll never truly wake up to your life. Because the way you sleep reveals how you live. Is it with resistance or surrender, with tension or trust? Monks don't sleep to escape their suffering. They rest to understand it, to hold it gently, to make peace with it. And in doing so, they allow their suffering to dissolve, not in struggle, but in silence. So tonight, instead of numbing out, try tuning in. Instead of falling asleep, try arriving into sleep, as if you were walking into a sacred temple. Because your bedroom can be a temple, your pillow an altar, your breath a prayer. Let rest become your ritual, not because you earned it, but because your soul is worthy of it every single night. And when sleep becomes sacred, you no longer dread the dark, you welcome it, because you know it's not the end of something. It's the beginning of something quiet, healing, and infinitely holy. They say aging is not for the faint of heart, and it's true. Gray hairs and wrinkles are the easy part. What really weighs on the elderly isn't just aching joints or fading eyesight. It's the heaviness of emotions left unchecked, unspoken grief, lingering regret, the quiet storms of resentment that never found a way to pass. These don't show up on medical scans, but they erode joy like water slowly carving stone. Just as we wash our face or brush our teeth each day, the elderly must learn a different kind of hygiene, emotional hygiene. Because what we don't release, we carry, and what we carry carries us. Imagine your mind like a sacred garden. You've spent a lifetime planting seeds, some of love, others of pain. Some flowers bloomed, some never got enough light. But now, in this final act of life, it's time to do the inner weeding, to pull out the thorns of guilt, to tend to the dry soil of neglected friendships, to finally let go of the stories that no longer serve your peace. Buddhism teaches, holding onto anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. So many elders are unknowingly still clutching these coals. Anger at children who didn't call, bitterness at a spouse who passed too soon, shame for mistakes made decades ago. But what if growing old was the permission you've been waiting for to finally forgive? Not just others, but yourself. Forgiveness here isn't a grand speech or dramatic gesture. Sometimes it's just a silent exhale in the dark before bed, whispering to yourself, I did the best I could with what I knew. And that's enough. This is emotional hygiene. A daily tending to your mind like a wise monk sweeping fallen leaves from a temple floor. Gently, routinely, without judgment. And yes, it means limiting the weeds of gossip, fear-mongering, and regret. It means being mindful of what you watch, what you read, and who you allow into your sacred garden. Not every visitor is a guest. Some are storms in disguise. The elder who knows this begins to choose solitude over noise, peace over pride, presence over proving a point. They may speak less but feel more. They may listen deeper and carry less, because peace is not found in controlling life. It's found in releasing what no longer belongs. One Japanese Zen master once said, when the mind is still, the world surrenders. Emotional hygiene is how you make that stillness possible. You don't have to wait for your circumstances to change. You only have to clean the window of your perception. Each time you breathe with awareness, each time you journal your truth, each time you pray not for more years, but for lighter ones, you're washing away the dust from your inner mirror. And what's reflected back? A peaceful elder, eyes soft with compassion, heart empty of vengeance, yet full, overflowing with understanding. This isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about digesting them, transforming the rawness of emotion into the richness of wisdom. You see, physical wounds heal with time, but emotional ones heal with attention. So, dear listener, if you wish to age with grace, if you wish to live your last years not as a slow fading, but as a bright glowing ember, then make your inner world a priority. Sweep your mind with care, water it with kindness, protect it with silence, tend it like the sacred garden it is, and slowly, quietly, you'll become the kind of elder who walks into a room and brings calm without speaking, not because you have all the answers, but because you've mastered the art of letting go. When a person ages with grace, there's something undeniably noble about them. It's not just in their words or the stories they carry, it's in the way they move, the way they dress, the way they care for themselves. There's an elegance, a quiet pride that radiates from someone who hasn't given up on their appearance, not for vanity but for dignity. In Buddhist thought, outer care is not superficial. It is a reflection of the sacred temple that houses the mind and spirit. The Buddha himself was known for being clean, composed, and dignified in all his manners. He wore simple yet spotless robes, maintained personal cleanliness, and emphasized modesty not as an act of self-denial, but as an expression of self-respect. This wasn't to impress others, it was to maintain mindfulness through presence. As we age, some may think, why bother? When it comes to grooming or self-care, After all, the rush of youth has passed, and the world may not seem to pay as much attention anymore. But this is precisely the time when tending to your physical presence becomes more important, not to meet society's standards, but to nourish your own inner peace. Caring for your body, the brushing of your teeth, the cleanliness of your clothing, the combing of your hair, is an act of mindfulness. Every gesture becomes a meditation. Every effort becomes a declaration. I still matter. I am still here. I am still alive in this body, and I honor it. When elders walk slowly but stand tall, when they wear clean clothes and present themselves with quiet confidence, they communicate something powerful without uttering a word. They teach by being. They remind younger generations that dignity doesn't fade with age, it deepens. And there's a subtle but profound spiritual teaching in this. Your body is the house of your mind, and just as you wouldn't let a sacred temple fall into disrepair, neither should you neglect the body that serves as your spiritual instrument. Even a warm bath taken mindfully, or the ritual of washing your face at sunrise, can become a spiritual offering. These moments restore more than skin, they restore presence. In Zen monasteries, monks rise early to clean not just themselves but their surroundings. They polish the floors, tend to the garden, sweep the paths. Why? Because to care for the outer world is to bring order and clarity to the inner world. The same is true with how we carry ourselves. Clean nails, tidy hair, a fresh scent, not to impress, but to embody presence. The elderly who maintain a sense of care about their hygiene and appearance often experience better emotional health. They're less likely to fall into apathy or depression. Why? Because those small acts of self-respect create ripples of energy. When you dress well, you feel well. When you groom with care, you engage with the moment. It's not about chasing youth, it's about claiming your worth. And let's speak plainly. The world sees how we treat ourselves. If you carry yourself with care, people notice. They respond to you with greater respect. You don't have to wear expensive clothes or put on a show. Even a simple, well-ironed shirt and neat grooming can express volumes. You say to the world, I still choose to be present. I still choose to show up with intention. This is especially important in a time when growing old is often unfairly associated with being forgotten or unseen. You are not invisible. You are a walking scripture of life's teachings. And when you present yourself with grace, the world is reminded to listen. There is a story in the Buddhist texts of an old monk who, though frail and nearing death, continued to wake each morning, wash his face, put on clean robes, and sweep the monastery grounds. When a young disciple asked why he did this even when his body was so weak, the elder replied, "So that when death comes, it finds me alive and aware, not abandoned to decay." This is the spirit we carry into our later years, not to resist the body's aging but to walk through it with reverence. When we clean ourselves, we are not just tending to skin, we're sweeping away stagnation, brushing off despair, renewing our connection to life. So don't ever think grooming or cleanliness is beneath you. It is not a matter of pride, it is a matter of presence. Dress in a way that feels good to you. Wear colors that uplift your soul. Brush your hair not for others to see, but to remember that you are still here. Apply lotion to your hands and feet with the tenderness of a caretaker. Stand in front of the mirror not to criticize, but to recognize, I am still sacred. I am still the home of wisdom. The monk doesn't care for his robe because it is luxurious. He cares for it because it is the robe of practice. Likewise, your body is the robe of your soul. Treat it with the dignity it deserves. And in this stillness, this self-care, you'll discover something miraculous. Outer care softens inner chaos. You'll feel lighter, calmer, more open to joy. You'll begin to walk not as someone growing older, but as someone growing deeper. Because when we care for ourselves with respect, the world responds with recognition. We become not just seen, but felt. Now, as we turn inward from the physical body to the subtle inner layers of presence, there's another realm that defines peaceful aging. It's not just how we look or move, but the invisible energy we bring into a room. It's the silence behind our words, the calm behind our eyes, the spiritual weight we carry. Let's now step into this subtle space, where simplicity becomes power and where stillness becomes strength. A sword kept in its sheath too long loses its edge. A mind left untrained dulls faster than any blade. In the monastery, the daily sweeping of the courtyard is more than just cleaning leaves. It's training. Not just for the body, but for the mind. Every sweep, every motion is a return to the present moment, a sharpening of awareness, a gentle refusal to let the blade of consciousness go blunt. You see, aging does not have to mean fading. While the body may slow, the mind can remain radiant, clear, cutting, and alive, if it is continually trained. And that training is not something reserved for philosophers or monks in faraway temples. It is available to you wherever you are at any age. Mind training is not about mastering complicated techniques. It is about remembering to come back to now, to this moment, this breath, this thought, this silence. But how? Let us begin with the simplest of disciplines, watching the breath. The breath is the most ancient teacher. It has been with you since the moment you were born, and it will stay until your final exhale. To train the mind, you start by befriending this silent rhythm, not controlling it, not judging it, just watching. Sit, close your eyes, feel the breath as it enters, cool at the nostrils. Feel it as it leaves, warm and soft. Notice the pause between. That pause is not emptiness, it is presence. That pause is where eternity hides. And when thoughts arise, and they always do, don't wrestle with them. Don't chase them. Don't punish yourself. Just smile inwardly and return. Again and again, like returning home. This is mental push-up 1, return. Over time, this simple practice gives birth to stillness. And stillness is not the absence of thought. Stillness is the space that holds thought without being shaken by it. This is where wisdom is born. But the breath is just the beginning. The next training is in observation. Every moment is an opportunity to observe the nature of your mind, its reactions, judgments, cravings, irritations. Most people live in reactivity, not reflection. But when you train yourself to become a witness, you rise above the waves of emotional noise. Try this. Next time you feel anger, don't say, "I am angry." Instead say, "Anger is arising." Do you feel the shift? You've gone from being the storm to watching the storm, and the watcher is always free. You become less of a puppet to your emotions, more of a master of your responses. A well-trained mind is like a candle in the wind. It may flicker, but it never goes out. As the Buddha taught, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. So if you want to become peaceful, train the mind to notice peace. If you want to become wise, train the mind to observe without clinging. If you want to live without fear, train the mind to see through impermanence. Mental fitness is not a one-time effort. It is a ritual, a devotion. Just as your body weakens without movement, your mind dulls without discipline. But when the mind is sharp, even ordinary moments become illuminated. Even silence becomes symphonic. Now some people say, "But I'm too old to start this now." To them I say, that's like saying the sword is too old to be sharpened. No, the sword remembers, the mind remembers. It's not about how long you've neglected it, it's about how sincerely you pick it up again. Even a few minutes of sincere practice, repeated daily, is enough to reawaken clarity. You can begin today, right now. As you're listening to this, breathe, observe, notice, return. This is how the sage ages, with a mind that cuts through confusion and rests in clarity. This is how you carry dignity, not only in the way you dress or walk, but in the way you hold your mind like a polished blade, ready to meet life and death with open eyes. And so, as the blade of the mind sharpens, so too does the way we relate to the world around us. In the next reflection, we look at a truth often overlooked: the unseen energy of our surroundings, our homes, our habits. For while the mind may be sharp, the space it dwells in must also be tended with care. Let's open the door to a practice even monks hold sacred. There's a story often told in Zen tradition about a proud monk who crossed a river alone every day, rejecting offers of help from villagers. One day he slipped, fell into the water, and almost drowned. When rescued, soaked and trembling, he whispered, "Perhaps I mistook independence for wisdom." This story isn't just about danger, it's about the hidden strength in asking for help. As we grow older, many of us are conditioned to cling to self-reliance as a badge of honor. We've raised families, built lives, and survived more storms than we care to count. But the irony of aging is that while wisdom deepens, physical ability often wanes. And yet, asking for help can feel like admitting defeat. That couldn't be further from the truth. In Buddhist philosophy, humility is not weakness. It is the full recognition of interdependence, that nothing and no one truly exists alone. Just as trees lean toward the sun and rivers rely on gravity, we, too, are sustained by connection. And sometimes, strength is measured not in how much we can carry, but in knowing when to let others carry us. Think of the Sangha, the spiritual community the Buddha created. Even the enlightened one didn't walk alone. He surrounded himself with others: monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen. When a member of the Sangha was ill, others brought them food, bathed them, cleaned their bedding. Compassion was not a service, it was a sacred duty. And accepting help was not shameful, it was a form of grace. Letting someone help you is an act of trust. It opens a gate between souls. It says, "I see you, I need you, and I allow myself to receive." This exchange is deeply human. More importantly, it is deeply healing. You might be surprised to find that when you let others assist you, they feel empowered, not burdened. It gives them purpose, just as you once had purpose helping those who needed you. Consider the elderly woman who accepts help tying her shoelaces, not with embarrassment, but with a warm smile and a quiet thank you. Her small act of receptivity transforms the moment from inconvenience to connection. Or the grandfather who, no longer able to drive, humbly asks his granddaughter to take him to the park. On that ride, stories are shared, memories revisited. By asking for help, he created a moment that may shape her view of aging forever. There's an old Zen saying, "When the hand is open, both giving and receiving become possible." But with a closed fist, clenched with pride, fear, or ego, nothing flows in and nothing flows out. Many elders suffer not from physical decline, but from isolation. And much of that isolation begins with the refusal to ask. The truth is, those around you often want to help, but don't know how unless you open the door. Ask yourself, when was the last time you let someone truly be there for you? Not out of desperation, but out of connection. Sometimes, even asking someone to sit and listen is a gift to both of you. You give them a chance to practice compassion. You give yourself the chance to be human. Even the Buddha, after years of meditation and ascetic life, accepted food from a village girl named Sujata under a bodhi tree. That meal's simple rice and milk restored his strength, allowing him to reach enlightenment. It was a moment of receiving, and it changed the world. So no, asking for help does not make you smaller. It expands your heart. It lets others step into their better selves. And in those moments, quiet, humble, and sincere, you embody the truest strength. The strength to be real, to be open, and to belong. Because sometimes the most powerful words an elder can say are not "I'm fine," but "Can you help me?" And the most powerful response we receive might be a hand gently reaching back. And that, dear listener, is where strength meets surrender, and humility becomes a holy act. Now, let's turn inward once again. This time, not to seek help from others, but to awaken the greatest support you've always had. Your breath, your awareness, your center. Because next, we'll enter the sacred stillness of. There's a quiet strength in those who live deliberately, not forcefully, not urgently, but deliberately. As if every breath matters, because it does. When you've learned the humility to ask for help, you begin to realize that life is not about doing everything alone, but about doing everything mindfully. The world often teaches us to chase big wins, wealth, fame, recognition, but the awakened ones, the sages, the monks, they whisper something else. True transformation doesn't come from grand gestures. It comes from the small things, the unseen, the uncelebrated, the consistent. Waking up and making your bed with care, preparing a simple meal and offering thanks, sitting silently with a cup of tea, watching steam rise like incense smoke. A reminder that nothing lasts. And that's okay. Living with intention doesn't mean planning every detail. It means choosing to be present in whatever you're doing. Whether you're sweeping the floor or folding your shirt, you are fully here, and that simple act becomes sacred. The Buddha once taught, our life is shaped by our mind. We become what we think. But our thoughts are often guided by our habits. Those little loops we repeat every day. So what if you made peace a habit? What if you started each morning with one deep breath and one silent promise? Today I will show up with love, not just for others, but for myself. What if you stopped multitasking and instead poured your whole being into just one thing at a time? One step, one smile, one word. And what if that one moment was enough? When monks sweep temple grounds, they aren't trying to finish quickly. They're practicing mindfulness. Each stroke of the broom, a bow to the present moment. They aren't just cleaning, they are training the mind, taming it, sharpening it, returning home to now. In a world that celebrates hustle and noise, you become a radical presence by slowing down, by choosing meaning over speed, depth over breadth, stillness over stimulation. You begin to understand something profound. Peace doesn't happen by accident. It's cultivated through daily rituals, small acts of kindness, repeated thoughts of gratitude, and the gentle discipline of choosing to live awake. So don't underestimate the power of habit, not the habit of surviving, but the habit of being truly alive. Each time you light a candle, say a prayer, listen with full attention, or simply sit in silence without needing to fix anything, you are watering seeds of awakening. You don't need to wait for a retreat or a perfect morning. Right now is your temple. Right now is your teacher. Because the monk doesn't wait for enlightenment. He prepares for it through small, intentional steps that become his path. And perhaps that's all we need to do too. Just show up fully today, again and again and again. And in the end, those tiny sacred acts, done with heart, done with awareness, they build a life not just of longevity, but of purpose. A life where the ordinary becomes holy. A life where every breath matters. There comes a quiet moment in life, a stillness, not because the world has slowed down, but because you have started to see it more clearly. Aging isn't a punishment. It's not the closing act. It's the great unfolding. The petals of your spiritual life finally opening in full bloom. When we're young, we chase time, love, approval, meaning. But in our later years, we learn. What we were running toward was never out there. It was always within. Every wrinkle tells a story. Every gray hair holds a teaching. Every morning we wake up is not just another day. It is a summons to deepen our presence. Living longer is not the same as living wiser. To live wisely is to live deliberately. To walk slowly through the garden of your life, savoring the scent of each flower, even those blooming from pain, regret, or solitude. Aging is not about becoming invisible. It's about becoming transparent, not fading into the background, but allowing the light of your essence to shine through you. Unfiltered, unforced, unapologetically pure, the Buddha once said, "Just as a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life." To age without spirituality is to grow hollow. To age with mindfulness is to become whole. And so, dear one, let your days be a prayer. Let your meals be a meditation. Let your sleep be sacred. Let your presence be the softest revolution. And let every small act of kindness be a seed of liberation you plant for the next life. Or simply for this moment. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are right on time, at the very edge of awakening. If this resonated with you, take a breath and know you're not alone on this path. Subscribe to Zen Buddhism Wisdom for more teachings that whisper to the soul, stories that open the heart, and guidance that honors the stillness within. You've walked far to get here. Let's walk the rest of the way together. Until next time, be gentle, be free, be deeply awake.